Hello and welcome to another presentation on tactical inquiries. Today we're going to be talking about the Mk18 program, the shortened version of the Colt M4A1 adopted during the Global War on Terror and used to great effect by a number of interesting groups of special operators for many years at this point. What we're looking at here is a CQB-R Mod 1 upper receiver group. This one is pretty much a clone, although I always hazard to say clone. I'm sure there will probably be some comments about that. But this is a Colt Cage Code upper, a Daniel Defense RIS-2 10.3-inch Colt barrel. The upper receiver and bolt carrier group are all the right parts, as are the barrel and the RIS-2 here. A number of accessories that are emblematic or iconic of this weapon system are the EOTech EXPS 3-0, the G33 magnifier, Mk18, RC2 suppressor, LMT SOP mod stock, A2 grip, many of which were changed out later on, but at least for the earlier receivers that were converted into Mk18s from pre-existing rifles, you're going to have an A2. The upgraded PMag from the old school Stanag magazines. This one is a windowed 3rd generation magazine. And some other parts that we'll look at as we go along. But we can't really talk about the Mk18 without talking about this upper receiver group, which is the Mk18 part, predecessor, which is the Mk18 Mod 0, which we'll have a look at. So this is the OG Mk18. This is the Mk18 Mod 0 upper receiver group. As you can see, another Colt upper receiver group with a little key mark. This has a Knights Armament RAS system. So this is the old school drop-in, sort of clamshell style of rail. Knights Armament rail cover. The Knights Armament grip. You can see the little knight there. Very old school surefire light. This, I believe, is an M951. This is an extremely heavy, very large, old piece of kit. I'll just take it off here for reference. The light body itself is just about as long as the receiver, and it puts out very little yellow light, very few lumens. This is an old ARMS number 17, if it'll focus. Let's do one of these. The old Trilock system with an NSN number, national stock number. Just put it back on there. You'll see a similar type of mounting system on the Elcan Spectre DR, which is part of this program. But this is a 10.3-inch barrel, cut down. You can see the F mark there. This is a standard A2 bird cage. You will see that on some of these. A lot of them do have the Knights Armament NT4, which is very similar looking except for a small notch. That allows for the installation of the NT4 suppressor, what a lot of people call a corn cob, which you'll see on a lot of these older guns and photos. I personally don't have one. They're actually quite expensive now. When they do come back to market, they're like $1,800. People like to resell them for a whole lot more than that, and that's just not my interest. Some other parts of this are going to be the old school LMT L8A, which is a old backup iron sight. Looks a lot like a cut-down carry handle, which early on in the program, a lot of them I believe were, until this more official version came out later and was formally adopted. This is actually an Aimpoint Comp M3. The ones that would have been in there would have been Comp M2s or CCOs. Essentially earlier aim points, but functionally essentially identical. You can see as well that we have the Wilcox mount. It's a harder part to get, but again is very iconic of this particular rifle. So, this is used in shipboarding operations. It was used by the Navy and the Navy SEALs, various different groups within the military who needed a much shorter, compact package. These tended to be a little bit gassy, but they were very small, and they were very useful for specialized special warfare type use. So along comes the Block 2 program, which we'll have a look at a receiver here. This is a Block 2 M4A1 upper receiver group. So this is F marked. This is the long version of the RIS-2 from Daniel Defense. It has the front sight post or FSP cut. These again were used by all sorts of people, special operators, as well as I believe the Marines in some limited capacities. This was an upgraded receiver group over the old M4, which rail was shorter, didn't allow for as much real estate for things like the Mk18 or additional lights or anything like that. As you can see, over the old school birdcage, we have a Surefire 3-prong. This is a updated, not exactly clone correct piece. The 4-prong, which we'll see later on the Mark 18, was ultimately the contract winner. The 3-prong is a technically superior muzzle device, although by the time that the 4-prong was adopted, the 3-prong was in testing or was coming out, the government ended up running with the 3 prongs, or the 4-prong, I should say. So that was old news. Right here we have the Spectre DR. We've got a whole video on this. It's a very good, very heavy old optic. It has its flaws, it has its lovers, it has its haters. Here we'll have an MA-Tech backup iron sight. I believe these were going to be Army, and the Knights Armament were more so Marine Corps use. A lot of them are marked USMC. Up on top we have, of course, the MRDS. If you want some more information about that, check the channel archives. We've got some information on it. And a Tango Down front grip, which you do see in some in the wild type pictures. A little bit different from the Knights Armament broomstick, which you have here. All right, so moving on to the Mark 18. I guess we'll go from back to front here. It'll be a little bit different. LMT SOP mod stock, PRI gas buster charging handle. Like I said, these are quite gassy. The RC2 is a bit of a gassy can. There's a lot of back pressure that comes in behind the can. You can actually see, if you look closely, where some of that powder had come off and is starting to turn the rail a darker color. A2 grip, old school M4A1. Cage code marked upper receiver with the keyhole. G33 and EXPS 3.0 holographic sight, like you've got in all the video games these days. Upgraded windowed P magazine, the RIS2, PEC 15, and RC2. On the other side, as you can see, this is get it up in the camera, an authentic Colt receiver. M300 light. These were not issued originally with Surefires. There is an Insight flashlight, Insight Technologies light, called a WMX200. That was a vampire light, meaning you could do both infrared light for night vision use as well as visible light for daylight or indoor use. You do see, though, as the global war on terror went on, that individual operators were switching to Surefire M300s, M600s, and M600 or M300V, or vampire lights. There are a lot of complaints about the WMX200. A lot of militaries around the world still use them, so perhaps there's some credence, but there's certainly been some complaints, at least that I've seen online. Now, onto the suppressor, which is an upgrade for the system over the old NT4, which was Knights Armament, is the Surefire SOCOM 556. This is the RC2. As you can see, the finish on these is not the best. This one has had a lot of rounds through it, a little bit of paint, a lot of scratching, but it has held up and is a very good suppressor. I know a lot of people carbon lock these onto their barrels. I have not really had that problem a whole lot, even though I do shoot it quite a bit. The technology in these is a bit antiquated compared to some of the newer cans, but it is very robust. It is very good at what it does, and it's held up great on all of my rifles over the last couple of years. This is my first NFA item, and I like it quite a bit. Now, talking about muzzle devices and suppressors, this is that 4-prong. So as you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 prongs on this device. They do ring quite a bit, kind of like a tuning fork when you shoot them, and that goes for both the 3 and the 4-prong. It's something you get used to. First couple of times you do it, you might think that you've damaged your hearing and you've got tinnitus. I guarantee that's probably from something else stupid you were doing. But that is the muzzle device that is germane or clone correct to both this and the Block 2 rifles. So that's a brief overview of everything on here. Really nothing else that's too special. CQD sling in the rear, CQD sling in the front for HK style hooks. Simple push button on the Surefire light, and I believe this is a mod button, which just activates the PEC without having to come up and over, although you can come up and over if you'd like, and a lot of guys do. That's just been my preference. So if you have any questions at all about my Mark 18 Mod 0, my Mark 18 CQBR Mod 1, upper receiver, the Block 2, or any other clone parts, rifles, or concepts that we've discussed on this channel, please do leave a comment. If you want to see more content like this, please do subscribe. And we look forward to catching you on the next presentation. This has been Tactical Inquiries. Thank you very much for your time, and have a good one.